In this tutorial I'll show you how to crochet a beanie, and most of this beanie is done in the single crochet stitch, and on the front band just along here we've got a double crochet, and we'll also be using the slip stitch. The materials required for this beanie is Red Heart with Love yarn, and I'm using the colour Bubblegum. And it's a medium worsted weight yarn. If you don't have this, you can use an 8-ply or a DK yarn. You'll also need a stitch marker, your craft scissors, a yarn needle, and I've used a 5.5mm hook. To get started, we're going to make a slip knot. So wrapping the yarn around your finger, and take that off, and then push the working end of the yarn up through that loop, and then pull the yarn tail, and there we have our slip knot. Using our 5.5mm hook, insert it in there and just pull. And now we're going to make 4 chain stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to join into the first chain stitch here to form a ring. Just flip your tail end over there, get the working end, wrap it over your hook, and we'll make a slip stitch through those 2 loops, and there we have our ring. Now from here on out we'll be using our stitch marker to place into the first stitch of each round. So now that we've got our ring, we're going to be working over this tail end and making 8 single crochet stitches into the center of this ring. So we'll make the first single crochet, and that's your tail there. There's our first single crochet stitch. So we want to place our marker into that stitch. So we've got 1 single crochet. Now remember to work over this tail with each stitch. Two single crochet, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's round 1 completed. And remember, we're not joining into this stitch because we're working in continuous rounds. we'll just be working our next stitch for the next round into that one, and around and around. Okay, so for round 2 we're going to be doing 2 single crochet stitches into each of those 8 stitches. So now we take our marker out, and you can just leave the tail alone now, we'll fix that up later. So into this first stitch where we've just taken the marker out, we're going to do our first single crochet stitch into that stitch, pop our marker back in, and then into that same stitch where we just put that single crochet, we want to do a second single crochet stitch. Moving on to the next stitch, we'll do 2 single crochet into this stitch. So there's the first one and the second one. And we'll do the same for all of these stitches around. 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch around. 1, 2. Next stitch, 1, 2. Next stitch, 1, 2. Next stitch, 1, 2. Into the next stitch, 1, 2. Into the next stitch, 1, 2. And that's the end of round 2, and you'll have 16 stitches. And you'll know that you're at the end of the round because you always finish on the stitch just before the marker. And whenever you're placing 2 or more stitches into one stitch, like we've done here, that means that you're increasing. And that's how it's going to get larger and larger. So for round 3, we'll take our marker out and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So this is our first stitch on this round. So always place the marker into that first stitch that you do. And then we're going to be doing 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. So 1, 2. So that'll be the whole sequence of round 3. 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and the same right around. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and 2 single crochet into this next stitch. So repeat that sequence right around until you get to this stitch just before the marker. And at the end of round 3 you'll have 24 stitches. So I'm at the end of round 3 and I've just done my last 2 stitches into the last stitch there just before the marker. And now we're up to round 4. So we'll take our marker out. And for round 4 we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So we'll do our first one here, put the marker back in, so there's 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches. 1, 2. So this is going to be the whole sequence for this round. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. So repeat that sequence right around until you get to this stitch just before the marker, and I'll see you at the end. So I'm at the end of round 4 and I have 32 stitches, and I've done my last 2 stitches into the last stitch just before the stitch marker. So for round 5, take our marker out and we're going to be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So we'll place our first one here, and then we'll put our marker back in. So there's 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch 1 single crochet, into the next stitch 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch we do 2 single crochet stitches. 1, 2, and then we do that sequence again. So it's 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and into the next stitch 2 single crochet stitches. 1, 2. So repeat that sequence right around until you get to the stitch just before the stitch marker, and at the end of this round you should have 40 stitches. So I'm at the end of round 5 and I've done my last 2 stitches into the stitch just before the marker. So for round 6 we'll take the marker out and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So we'll do our first one here. So single crochet and put our marker back into that stitch that we just did. So there's 1, 2 into the next stitch, 3 to the next stitch, There's our fourth one, and into the next stitch we'll be doing 2 single crochet stitches. One, 2 into that same stitch, and that'll be our sequence right around. So 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and into the next stitch 2 single crochet stitches. 1, 2. So repeat that sequence right around, and at the end of this round you should have 48 stitches. So I'm at the end of round 6. I've done my last 2 single crochet stitches into the last stitch just before the marker, and for round 7 we'll take the marker out and we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. So we'll do our first one here, and then placing the marker back into that stitch there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the next stitch would be 2 single crochet stitches. There's the first one and the second one, and that's our sequence for this round. So it's 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches along, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. There's the first one, and there's the second one. So repeat that sequence right around, and at the end of this round you should have 56 stitches. I'm at the end of round 7, and I've done my last 2 single crochet into the stitch just before the marker, and for round 8 we'll take out the marker. We'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. So we'll do our first single crochet stitch into where we've taken our marker out, and then we'll place our marker back into that stitch we've just made. So there's our first single crochet. Our second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and into the next stitch here we do 2 single crochet stitches. So there's our first one and our second one, and that's our sequence for this round. So 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. So there's our first one and our second one into that same stitch. So repeat that sequence right around for this round, and at the end you should have 64 stitches. So now we're at the end of round 8 and we've made our last 2 single crochet stitches into this stitch just before the stitch marker. And from here on in for the sides we'll just be working with these 64 stitches that we have. So no more increasing. So for round 9 we'll take the marker out, make a single crochet into that stitch there, place your marker back in, and this round is quite easy. It's just 1 single crochet stitch into each stitch around. So 1 single crochet into each stitch around until you get to the end of the marker here. So continue on making 1 single crochet stitch into each stitch around, and I'll see you at the end here. So I'm at the end of round 9 and we've still got our 64 stitches, and I've made my last single crochet stitch into that stitch there just before the marker, and we've completed the crown of the hat or the chemo cap now. So that's the crown, the top, and we'll be working on the sides now. But before we work on the sides, we just want to tighten up the center here, and to do that you just give it a slight pull to tighten that center up, and then with your yarn needle you're going to tighten it even more by weaving your needle around these stitches in the center here. And that tightens it up. And you can keep going around and around until you run out of your yarn tail. And then to secure it even more, if you can see there where I've got my tail there, just skip 1 loop and go back in the opposite direction and weave back through this way. And just make sure that that tail doesn't come undone or come out at a later stage. And just weave back around in the opposite direction. And then you can just trim that off, and that's your center done. And then we can move on to the sides. And the sides are very easy. So for rounds 10 to 27, we'll be doing one single crochet into each stitch around. So this is round 10. So just put a single crochet there into that stitch where we took the marker out, and place your marker back in. And always remember to put your marker back in to the first stitch you make on each of these rounds, just so you don't get lost. So for round 10 and all following rows up to 27, you'll just be doing this, one single crochet into each stitch around, and this creates the sides. And because we're only working with 64 stitches, it's going to create an even sides, and it comes down this way. So you'll be working down, around, and it comes down. So you just continue on making one single crochet stitch into each stitch around. And as I said, you'll be doing that for this round, which is round 10, and all following rounds up to round 27. Okay, so once you get up to the end of round 27, this is what your work is going to look like. And I've just done my last stitch there just before the stitch marker, and if I turn it over like this, you can get a better look at what it looks like here. So now we'll be working on the last round, which is round 28, and this is the edging and the small front brim. So take your marker out there, and we're going to be doing one slip stitch into each of the next 23 stitches. So we'll place our first slip stitch into the stitch where we took our marker out, and you can just place your marker back in there. So we're going to do 23 slip stitches along. So we've got our first one there. There's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So there's our 23 slip stitches, which creates a nice edge at the bottom of the cap. Okay, so now we're going to do one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch along, 1 single crochet. And there we have our 2 single crochets. Then we're going to be doing 1 double crochet into each of the next 14 stitches. So there's 1 double crochet. Two double crochet, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 double crochet stitches, and that's created our small brim at the front. And now we'll do 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet stitch there, and into the next stitch a single crochet as well. And now we'll do 1 slip stitch into each of the next 23 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So continue right around doing your slip stitches, 1 slip stitch into each stitch around, and you'll be finishing in with the last slip stitch into this stitch here just before the stitch marker, and I'll see you at the end here. So I'm at the end of round 28 and I've made my last slip stitch in the stitch just before the stitch marker. And you can take the stitch marker out now because we won't need that anymore. And we're going to finish off. So just leave enough tail there so you can weave it into the work with a yarn needle. Cut your yarn. And finish off. Now with that yarn tail, we'll just weave that through, thread it through your yarn needle. And to get a neat edge here, where you can see where you've made your knot there, just slip the needle down through the middle of the slip stitch, the first slip stitch that you made, which is just the next one along from the knot here. So slip it down the middle there. And that draws that knot down. It gives it a neater edge. And to weave the end in through the back, you can just weave it down until you get down to this row here of stitches, and then just weave it through the back of the stitches along that round. And you can just keep going for as long as you like, or until you run out of your yarn tail. And then just turn and skip that last loop there of that stitch and run the needle back through the stitches again. This is just one way of securing it so that it doesn't pop out. And then you can trim that. And once you place it on a head, this is what the beanie will look like.